Hi, I'm Jem.
And I'm Victoria.
And this is
The
Criminal Crack.
Oh, goodness.
How are we today?
We're okay, thank you very much. How's Jem?
Good, I've just ate a scone with cream and jam on.
And she turned up today for a recording session looking all fancy schmancy.
Oh, yes.
And her glasses match her outfit, which is really cool.
They do.
And then I told her to make her own coffee and she was absolutely horrified.
Disgusted.
She's
I'm a guest.
No, I just won't have one then. I'm like, make your own coffee. There is a reason. I want you to open the cupboard.
And you didn't tell me to open the cupboard. You said go make your own coffee, and then you alluded to the fact that something might be there, and then I just stared at the kettle, and your dad started saying, the kettle's shiny, and I thought, so I am making my own coffee then. But, will I say, or are we just going to put it up on Facebook?
You can say, because I'll put it up on Facebook today, and then anyone that listens to the episode might not have seen Facebook, so we can say.
Well, I'm a little bit obsessed with Generation 1 My Little Ponies, and Victoria is amazing at finding them in the wild, and I am not. And I was at Landmark on Sunday and got a text saying, guess what? No, how much do you love me? And then there was a picture with ponies in a bag.
I scored pony, that's how I worded it.
Does that mean something? Because you keep saying that, and is it like cocaine or something?
I don't know, I think pony's money, isn't it?
Ponies, is it a 20?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Anyway, I found wild ponies.
Wild ponies, and I was like, oh my god, I'll send you money, how much? And I thought they were going to be extortionate, and she paid £3, and the loot that was in that bag is mental. I was just so excited.
And anyway, I hid them in the coffee cupboard.
First you hid them under, she hid some under a basket, which I'm allowed to keep to, and I was really excited about that. And then
I'm keeping the basket.
You said I could have the basket through there. You did. You 100% did. I'm taking the basket. And then, I opened it up, and there was under the basket, there was ponies and clothes, and I was really excited. And then I got forced to go to the coffee cupboard, and I opened it up, and there was babies! And Pegasus horses, and there was a flutter pony.
Baby ponies, for anyone that needs a translator. And everyone's dog's just woken up and gone, what?
Well, your eyes went all squinty. So I'm very excited, and yeah, there's videos, so just ignore my face and watch the videos. But it was really exciting. I've got a sore jaw now from smiling.
That's a good reason to have a sore jaw.
It is.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
You know, earlier you told your mum that she couldn't milk some old man. Do you know what that means?
Of course I know what it means.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an accident. Never mind. Moving on. So how are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm really looking forward.
Wait. Her mum did not want to go milk an old man. It was part of a conversation about Highland cows.
And condensed milk or something.
And clotted cream.
Mm-hmm. This is gross.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to a couple of weeks annual leave from my day job, which it's going to be fun.
It's not, because you're going to have to paint my house.
I'm going to help you paint. No, that's fun. I like doing that sort
of
thing.
I'm not going to make it fun. You're going to be on a rigid time schedule.
I have special dungarees just for painting.
And that's what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm. I get to wear my bandana and my dungies and paint a house. It's great.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! I don't have to look at the screen and do the typing and the thinking. Yep.
Sorry. You and your voices.
Sorry.
Oh, we went to see Weapons.
We did. And
it was shit.
I really enjoyed it. I've spoken to Andy a bit about this, our fellow podcaster who does the movies, the Beyond Graves and Stars, and we agree that it was just marketed wrong because it wasn't a horror. The trailer made me want to go and see it because I thought, oh, this looks like a genuinely
eerie, scary,
frightening film.
They said it was the most frightening thing people have ever seen.
And I think it's worth going to see. Don't be put off by this. I think it's really worth going to see. There were some bits, but I peed myself laughing and it probably wasn't supposed to be funny, so maybe I'm just sick.
No, the bit that you're on about, the Benny Hill bit, just, I felt like it just it degraded, or what's the word? It was just rubbish, guys. It's not scary. And I got really annoyed when I came out and the usher guy said, how was it? And Victoria said she liked it, and I said it was rubbish. And he was like, oh, too scary. And that really annoyed me because I was not scared.
No,
there was one bit, like the violence went on too long, and you're just like, hurry up. But that guy keeps the head button thing, and then there was the guy that kept bouncing back up to attack Brolin. And Jimmy Savile was in it, apparently, brought back from the dead as a woman.
With orange hair.
See, she just came out of nowhere as well. It was just annoying. It's just a really irritating film. So 0 stars from Jem.
3 stars from Vic. Shall we get on with our main...
Yeah, so this is going to be quite long.
Yeah.
I say that every time. It may turn into an episode that you want to listen to in 2 parts. We are going to see how we get on with it, because I don't want to talk like this all the way through so that you get on...
And I will throw things at her if she does that, because she needs to chill.
Throw ponies.
Oh, throw ponies. You would love that. You'd be like, it's raining ponies.
I would. Ponycore. I didn't say porn, because that would be weird.
You did now, though.
Oops.
Do you like my new curtains?
Oh, yeah, I do. You put it's curtains for you in the message, though, and I was like, I didn't ask for curtains, but they're very nice. And then I understood you were annoyed at me because I didn't answer FaceTime. Right.
Gemma, what? Sorry, her tummy's rumbling really loudly.
So I've just said that's gone.
What's the crack, Gem?
So, Victoria, today I'm sharing another fairly recent and local case with you, and regular listeners may notice there's some similarities between Sean's case from season 1, episode 1, and I think that's part of the reason that I chose this case.
Okay.
So, it was June the 6th, 2018, so recent, and 27-year-old Steven Donaldson was enjoying some time playing with his youngest sister Laurie's children in the garden of the Donaldson family home in Arbroath, in Angus on the north coast of Scotland. So it's not far from here, it's about 2 hours from here.
Yeah, north coast, but it's actually south and...
No, it's sort of
south of
around
us,
the bend.
Around the bend, like us.
Going round the bend. Twist. Like Stephen, Laurie and her 3 children were back staying with her mum and dad for a while. And the Donaldsons were a close family, so while Nicola, Stephen's other sister, had flown the coop, Stephen chose to live there when he was on leave from his job offshore because he just loved being with them all. And it really was a choice. Thanks to being an oil worker, Stephen earned a decent salary, which he wisely decided to put into property. So he actually owned 3 flats that he rented out. He had 2 in his hometown of Arbroath, and 1 was in Aberdeen. Along with properties, Stephen enjoyed spending money on motorbikes and flash cars, such as his current pride and joy, which was a BMW 1 Series, if that means anything to you guys.
Doesn't mean anything to me.
It's a nice car. I've seen a picture
Shiny
of it.
car.
And it had his personalised number plate, which read S73VED, Steve D.
That's cool.
Quite cool. At around 10 p.m. that night, Stephen waved goodbye to Laurie and her wee one and jumped in his car to go meet his girlfriend, 19-year-old Tamsin Glass. They had arranged to meet at a park in her hometown of Courier, around half an hour from his house. And according to Laurie, when he left, he was, quote, fine, his usual self. It was in the very early hours of the next day that RSPB warden Victoria Turnbull and a colleague arrived in the Loch Kinnordy Nature Reserve car park, and they were there to perform a bird survey. Survey.
As the RSPB do.
They do. And a little nod towards our international listeners, I'll explain 2 things. First, RSPB stands for, I thought Victoria was going to fill in the blank, Royal Society for Protection of Birds.
Yeah, my mind went blank, actually.
I put you on the spot a little bit there, sorry.
I do, but because we do a bird watch in the UK. Oh, you're invited to do a bird watch in your own garden in the UK, and I do that every year.
You get lots of birdies.
You just sit and you mark what birds come in, and actually the last time I did it, there was a sparrowhawk.
Ooh.
Yeah. I thought, oh, what a time to come when it's just like 1 hour of you recording.
An emu would be good.
Penguin.
I forget they're birds. Never see them fly. And the second thing I'd like to point out is that a loch is a word for lake or sea in Scottish and Irish Gaelic. So maybe not everybody knows that. And there was a loch on that reserve.
Yeah.
So, it was as Turnbull and her workmate pulled into the car park that they noticed that there was a burnt out car parked there. Now, initially they weren't too concerned, as they just assumed that the car had been dumped there by a fly tipper, which is someone who illegally dumps rubbish in unauthorised areas. When they got closer
Also known as a bell end.
Yeah, I second that. When they got closer to it, they suddenly realised there was someone lying next to the car. Confused, the pair got out of their own car and walked over to see what was going on. Shockingly and quickly, Victoria understood that what they were seeing was a very burnt, dead body. Grabbing her mobile, she called 999. At nearly 5:30am, 25 miles away in Forfar Police Station, PC Paul Hosking was on duty when the report came in of a body being found at the reserve. He and another officer quickly got into a police van and sped to the area, where, like Turnbull, they were faced with an awful scene. Leaving their car, they walked over the gravel car park towards the male victim in the car. He was lying beside the front wheels of a scorched, burnt-out vehicle. Despite noting that the victim was, quote, badly charred, PC Hosking was able to see what he thought were large lacerations covering the man's back and the back of his neck. He also reported that the victim seemed to be missing the lower part of his legs. On first look, the officers also saw a long line of drag marks that seemed to start beyond the car park and finished where the body lay.
Wow.
As Hoskins and his partner were first on scene, it was important that they did a full walk around to make sure that there were no other victims and to look for evidence that may need to be photographed and collected ASAP. Now, thankfully, there were no other casualties, but as he did his checks, PC Hoskins saw that the vehicle had no registration plates on it, which meant identifying the victim might be harder to do. Because obviously they would just check.
That was obviously something that... Who would think to do that?
Well, he said whether the fire was responsible for their absence,
right, okay.
maybe somebody had moved them. He didn't know, but he made a note of it. By this point, it was clear that it was time to put the emergency protocols into place. So after phoning the situation into his police station, he cordoned off the Loch Canordy Nature Reserve, creating an inner cordon, which is done to keep the initial crime scene isolated and sanitised, and to protect the integrity of the case, which obviously started as soon as the body was found.
Yeah.
He then drove up the road to the B951 junction in Kirriemuir and set a blockade up there too. He would control this himself to ensure that only those pertinent to the case could get through. So obviously this is really important to stop looky-loos and the press. As soon as the press hear, they would be on their way to the scene. So it's to stop that.
Yeah, and anybody else, I suppose.
Yeah.
Fishermen and dog walkers and...
Just people who didn't know anything was going on. Yeah, it's to stop everybody. So whilst all this was going on, a 49-year-old offshore worker from Arbroath called Martin Johnson was beginning to feel concerned about the whereabouts of one of his best friends. They spoke every day, and in their call the day before, they had arranged to meet up. However, despite calling him repeatedly, Martin had been unable to get in touch with him. None of the calls he had made had been answered, and after a time they were going straight to answer phone. According to Johnson, this was unfathomable. I don't know why I put that word in. Unfathomable, as, quote, in all the years I've known him, he would answer his phone. It wouldn't matter if he was in America and I was on the other side of the world.
So very out of character.
Very out of character. And he was talking about Steven Donaldson. And as it would turn out, he wasn't the only one who was worried about not hearing from him. So was John Ryan, who had also spoken to him the previous day. In a spooky move, both men, before talking to each other, decided to reach out to Steven's girlfriend Tamsin via Facebook Messenger, as they knew he'd been meeting with her the night before, and were of the understanding that though his relationship with Tamsin had been a bit up and down, he was going to see her and he was keen to make things work. She was going to be bringing money with her that she was due to him too, but for Stephen he was much more interested in the relationship, but that's why they were meeting up. So just a sidebar, the money was for a Volkswagen Sirocco that Stephen had previously bought Tamsin, which she'd then crashed and it got written off. So Tamsin claimed on her insurance and was allegedly paid back way more than Stephen had paid in the first place. So Stephen asked for the $2,500 that he had paid for it back, but told her she could keep the rest, and I think it was a sizable amount.
Right.
The rest. John Ryan felt that when he spoke to Stephen, he wanted to be with Tamsin and wanted things to get back on track rather than get any money, saying, quote, money never really fazed him. By 11:35 on the same day, Police Scotland Angus tweeted the following. Angus Police Scotland attended a Canordy Nature Reserve, Kirriemuir, this morning, Thursday the 7th of June at 5 a.m. after the body of a man was discovered. Inquiries are at an early stage and there are road closures in place. Now, it was actually this tweet that prompted Johnson and Ryan to reach out to Tamsin to ask if Steven was with her or if she knew where he was. So they'd been worried, seen the tweet, and both of them independently had got in touch with Tamsin.
Yeah, if they knew that he was going to see her for this money, then...
Yeah. When she replied to Johnson, he got the feeling that she was really upset and worried and felt the need to console her, telling her not to worry. She told him that Steven was meant to meet her, but he hadn't turned up, so she had left. She said the same to Ryan, who said she told him that she kept, quote, thinking we will wake up and this is all a nightmare. At some time, Johnson and Ryan connected and shared their worries about Steven, so they rounded up more mutual friends and headed to Courier to see if they could find out what was going on there and who had been found, probably hoping to put their minds at rest. Unfortunately, they didn't get any information as they were turned away by PC Hoskin at that blockade that we spoke about before. So later on the day, one of Steven's friends, I'm not sure which one, arrived at Steven's home and knocked on the door, which is reminiscent of Sean's case. And at this time, I don't think that the Donaldson family had any idea about the body or that they had any need to worry. So when the friend told them no one could find Steven and that a body had been found, can you just imagine how blindsided they were?
Yeah.
So now that they were aware that no one had seen hide nor hair of him since he left home, panic-stricken, Laurie got on the phone to 999 to report their concerns. Police took this seriously from the off and asked for details on what Laurie believed Steven's plans for the night before were. And after she explained that everyone was under the assumption that he was going to meet his girlfriend Tamsin Glass at the Courier Hill, police advised Laurie to get in touch with Tamsin and find out what had happened and when she'd last seen him. So obviously at this point...
Suspicious.
Obviously, as far as the police knew at this point, they have no idea who the body was, so to them there was every chance he was fine and had spent the night with Tamsin. They may have been told what she said to Johnson and Ryan, but they maybe wanted confirmation via the family as well. Laurie reached out on Messenger as though Tamsin had visited the Donaldson home on a number of occasions since early 2017 and Laurie had met her. I think it was one of those situations where they weren't friends or anything because they were brought together by Steven. They were sort of in each other's orbit. But, you know, they weren't friends. And this is why they didn't have each other's numbers. Okay, guys, if you can hear some lawn mowing in the background, it's one of the neighbours. So sorry, I'm just going to have to continue. She asked Tamsin what had happened the night before with Steven. She told Laurie that yes, she and Steven were meant to meet in Courier, but he didn't turn up. She elaborated, saying that they hadn't been getting on lately and were arguing a lot. So when Steven didn't show, she figured that he just changed his mind about meeting her or he was in a mood with her, so just stood her up. She says she did wait, but then she went home. She found it really odd the next morning though because she texted him and he didn't reply. Now obviously none of this was what Laurie wanted to hear. She wanted to be told that Steven was with Tamsin and would be back later or something. So no further on with locating Steven, Laurie was very clearly upset. So Tamsin then offered to come from Courier to Arbroath to be with the family to help or something, I guess, but Laurie turned her down, just saying no. Getting back on the phone to the police, Laurie relayed this information to them and was invited to come see the body for identification purposes later in the day. Then she received another message from Tamsin which read, quote, "Okay, love you all, please stay strong." I can tell you from personal experience that going to identify someone is one of the worst things I've ever had to do. I'm not going to mention who it was, but it was a family member and I was there to support immediate family. And I remember that as we travelled there, I had this pit of dread in my stomach. And it wasn't just because I didn't know what to expect, but more because although I was really, really hoping it wasn't who the police thought it was, I felt really guilty because I just felt like it was that person and I felt guilty for thinking that. I felt like I needed to be more positive and it's awful. You on the way there, you're hoping that what you think has happened is wrong, but you can't change it. Once that's happened, it's happened, but it's bloody awful.
I think it's something anyone that's not been through it will never understand it.
And I hope most of you, I hope none of you listening ever have to go through it, but it's horrible. For Laurie, this event was devastating and it confirmed that the body was her big brother, Steven Andrew Donaldson. Before we go any further, I want to share with you who Steven was. Now, obviously, I never had the pleasure of meeting the person I'm about to describe, and based on what I found out, it really would have been a pleasure. But I wanted to try and give as rounded out a picture of him as I could. And to me, this is really important because Steven shouldn't be remembered only as a victim, but as a person with a life, a job, a family, friends, ambitions, and wishes for his life. So, Steven was born on the 23rd of July 1990 to parents parents William and Pamela Donaldson. He grew up in Arbroath, which is the largest town in the historic county of Angus. So that's your fact for today. Friends and family alike knew him to be a caring and friendly guy. He was described as an intelligent young man who was very balanced. He worked hard and was very ambitious. He had his own goals and wanted to do well in life. And the ambition is clear by the opportunities which Steven was both offered and created for himself. In his younger years, although he was only 27, but in his younger years he had worked as an apprentice for an onshore oil and gas company based in Arbroath called Halliburton's, which he enjoyed. But he was a clever guy and realised quickly that the good money came from going offshore. Not only this, but he also knew that investing his money would serve him well in the future, so he went into property management, as I mentioned earlier when I spoke about the flats he bought and rented out.
Which is really good because so many people just piss it up the wall, don't they?
They do. So
near where we are, there's a lot of offshore workers, aren't there? They come in and you know, they're really flashy, they work hard though. Why not?
Well, they work, but I don't think it's particularly hard work,
really?
To be fair. No, I don't think it is. I think a lot of it's money because you're on the North Sea or wherever, and the places that he went.
Yeah.
But also when COVID happened, a lot of these people had nothing to back them up. They had no savings because they just spent everything. But
and
he
I
didn't
guess
do that.
They didn't have anywhere onshore to live either, do they? Because they only come home for weeks at a time.
Yeah,
Some
but
of
most
them
people
must-
do have. Well, they have to go somewhere.
Must rely on families.
No. A lot of them have flats.
Oh, okay.
Because they had loads of money.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. At the time of his death, Steven had been working offshore as a tool specialist and was loving travelling to places including Russia, the Congo, Africa and Azerbaijan for a decent sized salary. On his onshore time, he was very social and never really sat still or stayed inside, preferring to be out with friends. His pastimes included hitting the gym, going out on his motorbike with friends like Martin, or touring about in his car. People said the smile on his face was apparently a permanent fixture. People also shared that he was a friendly guy who was always up to help anyone out, including strangers. He had an incredibly caring and empathetic nature, and I'm going to share a story shortly that was relayed at his funeral that demonstrates that perfectly. On Friday the 9th of June 2018, when Police Scotland Angus announced to the public that the man found dead in the Loch Conordy Nature Reserve car park with Steven Donaldson, the devastation felt by Laurie and the Donaldson family grew, reaching far and wide. I've already shared how people felt about Steven and how so many people, including Martin Johnson, were finding it hard to comprehend his loss. Johnson shared, quote, "All his friends are in deep shock. We don't know why anyone would hurt Steven." On July the 13th, as police officers stood sentry outside two properties in Courier I, while detectives searched them, a past girlfriend of Steven's from his younger years begged locals to, quote, "put an end to this nightmare and share what they know." Clearly people were already suspected as being involved as the homes were being inspected with a fine-tooth comb, and she acknowledged that people may be scared of the implications for themselves if they spoke, but she urged them to speak out anyway. Obviously people knew whose houses were getting looked at, you know?
Yeah, gossip and whispers going around.
Yeah. And it seems as though witnesses did come forward, though I don't know if it's because of that article. On 14th of June, the same day that an event was organised by a friend of Steven's named Faisal Hassim called Support for Steven, the police announced details of people they were interested in talking to regarding Steven's case. From MIT, the senior investigator, Detective Superintendent James Smith, shared that they were looking for the following: a dark-haired man with a red Seat vehicle who was spotted in the reserve car park in the hours between 6 and 9 p.m. A couple who was seen around 7 p.m. having a picnic on top of a Land Rover Defender, also at the reserve.
Nice.
That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Witnesses say that they saw a dark vehicle in the car park of the reserve around 8 p.m. It's quite a busy place. Occupants of a dark-coloured 4x4 that witnesses reported that on Wednesday the 6th of June, they'd seen that vehicle parked up the end of a driveway about half a mile from the nature reserve. So maybe they thought, that's a bit sus. Whether police considered that some of these people were the same seen by different witnesses is not clear, but it's definitely a possibility. But it does seem like a busy place. What becomes clear later is that when D.S. Smith said he was, quote, determined to find those who tortured and took the life of Steven Donaldson, he meant it. On Monday the 23rd of July 2018, the same day that Steven should have been celebrating turning 28, was when family and friends met to say their goodbyes and lay him to rest. Loved ones arrived in droves to honour and celebrate the young man and to support his heartbroken family at the George Stewart Funeral Directors on Millgate Loan in Arbroath. Though the service was due to begin at 12:15, in a beautiful show of solidarity with the family, more than an hour before people began arriving.
Yeah.
At Pamela and William Donaldson's request, everyone arrived dressed in brightly coloured clothes to honour him and to say their farewells. Following the service, in the most amazing tribute, motorcyclists and quad bikers formed a cortege and accompanied the hearse to Arbroath Western Cemetery. And these were people that didn't know him as well, which is just lovely.
Yeah, there's a sort of biker community.
Really
there.
strong community.
Yeah. I've seen a cortege with motorcyclists, and I think it was one of their own actually had a motorcycle accident. So
there's been a lot. My mother-in-law's husband, he actually had, I can't remember how they worded it. It was a sidecar hearse. It was a motorbike with the coffin on the side, and loads of bikers were there.
Wow, I've not heard of that before.
During the service, which was performed by celebrant Jenny Leon, or Lion, a beautiful story was shared, and as I said before, it really demonstrated how a caring a person he was. So it went like this. One day, while Stephen was driving through the small coastal town of Inverbervie in the northeast of Scotland with a friend, they saw an older man at a bus stop and he took a tumble to the ground. Instantly concerned, Stephen turned his car around, parked up and helped the man back on his feet. Supporting him, he helped the man into his car and then drove him to his daughter's house in nearby Stonehaven, which I just think is lovely.
Yeah.
Because the majority of people probably would have carried on driving, thinking that somebody walking about would have helped him. I just thought it was lovely. Just 3 days after Stephen was laid to rest on June the 26th, it was announced that 3 people had appeared privately at Forfar Sheriff Court and were charged with Stephen's murder. As the two communities of Arbroath and Courier were small and tight-knit, I'm guessing, perhaps wrongly, that the names of the accused were no surprise to the locals, but given what I've shared so far, I think you might be by one at least.
Yeah, I think I've got one in
Yeah,
mind.
well, I've hinted heavily.
Yeah. I was going to say that's quite quick as well,
They
the
weren't-
arrests.
Yeah, they weren't the cleverest of people.
Okay.
I made a commitment not to swear on the podcast, but it might go out the window today.
You're allowed to swear. It's fine. This is an adult podcast, not for children. Gemma's going to swear now. Deal with it.
Oh, I'm not swearing quite yet, though. Deal with it when it happens. But yeah, there's going to be... I always give trigger warnings, and there is trigger warnings for this, and there is a little bit that there's people that may wish to not listen to, but we continue. It is for adults. You know what you're getting into with true crime. So, appearing in court to face charges of murder were Tamsin Glass, a Callum Davidson, and a Stephen Dickey. So, obviously, Tamsin's name's not new to you, but the other two are. Now, there isn't an awful lot of information on these two men, which honestly I'm not really that fussed about, as I don't feel like sharing much about them anyway. Because what I did find to share about them will undoubtedly show that they were just a pair of bullies. They were proper meathead thugs. You know the type.
I like that term.
Meathead thugs.
Yeah.
It's not the term I would normally use, but there we go. Alongside murder, both of these men
She's doing air quotes, people.
faced extra charges, which I will cover as well. Because when you hear about those charges, you'll understand why it's thought, well, yeah, they would definitely do this as well.
Right.
That Stephen and his family's lives were touched by theirs in any way, shape or form is tragic, and it only happened because of one person, Tamsin Glass. So Kirriemuir local, Tamsin, was 19 years old at the time she was charged for the murder of her then boyfriend, Steven Donaldson. And from what I found out, she was very well known in the community as a competitive dancer. And it looked like she was well on the way to becoming a professional and making a good career out of it.
She was only 19.
Yeah.
Okay.
She and Stephen met and began dating in October-November time 2017, with the pair getting serious fairly quickly. At this time, Tamsin was actually a singer for a Glasgow-based band, and she would travel up and down to Glasgow from Kirriemuir regularly for gigs. It's a journey of about 2 hours. So shortly shortly after the relationship began, she made the decision to move to Glasgow. So this undoubtedly made gigs easier for her, but probably made things harder for them as a couple, since it was really early days in their romance. During the trial, we find out that Tamsin's family thought that the relationship was over by the time Tamsin turned 19, so she was 18 when they got together, on March the 14th, 2018, and they'd gone out for a family meal in a restaurant and joked with her that she was single for her birthday, which, lovely. Happy birthday, haha, you loser. Like, can you imagine? Thanks. You better have gave me a good present. So, I think this was probably untrue anyway. They were together. Tamsin had lied and kept her family in the dark because by June 2018, she was carrying Stephen's child.
Oh.
According to Martin Johnston, Stephen told him at some point that he suspected that Tamsin was expecting. Suspected that she was expecting, but he didn't really know for sure. Johnson did follow up that he had met Glass on a few occasions, and she had told him before that she was trying to get pregnant to bring her and Stephen closer together. And there was also talk of to try and drop him in something.
That doesn't work like that.
No, and I don't...
As somebody that's on their way to be a professional dancer, why?
Because she's a professional idiot, I guess. Well, she's worse than an idiot. Unfortunately, the pregnancy seems to have come at a time where this relationship was on the outs. The couple were allegedly arguing a lot, but she was the woman that Stephen had left the safe surroundings of his loving family to meet that night, and she'd never, ever intended to tell him she was pregnant.
Wow.
So how would that keep them together?
Yeah.
In a really callous move, during that day, Tamsin had been pretending to Stephen that she was in Glasgow whilst texting him, while in reality she'd been in Courier spending the day with her new boyfriend, 24-year-old Stephen Dickey. There's actually a transcript of their text exchange for the day that Stephen was murdered, so I'm just going to read it to you.
So sorry, she's still pregnant at this time?
Yeah, she's pregnant.
With one Stephen's baby?
Yeah.
And then she's
seeing a Dickey. Steven Donaldson, can't wait to see you. Tamsin Glass, I'll let you know. Stephen, you meant to say you are too? Tamsin, I meant to, Stephen, but I'm not being a dick, but I'm not pushing anything, I've explained that. Stephen, it'd be different if you were up here, then we could have an actual relationship and everything else. She didn't reply. Around 4:30, Stephen, you want to go somewhere so we can chill? Tamsin, so we can speak? Nothing. At 6:38, Stephen, meeting Forfar? Tamsin, I'm not away to come through there late. Stephen, okay, I'll come to you. You bringing my money? Tamsin, I'm bringing everything, that okay? Stephen, so it must be over then, yeah? Tamsin, not saying that, but if we argue, you can have all your stuff back. Stephen, oh, right. Have you told her you're coming to see me? Tamsin, no, not yet. Well, Stephen, you kind of can't expect me to be okay with all this arguing. Stephen, well, you can't expect me to be okay with not knowing what's happening with us either. No reply. 10:22. I'm nearly there. Mum's not happy. I'm going out again, so I'll see you tomorrow night. What time suits you? Stephen, nah, not leaving it. We'll be there soon. Tamsin, up the hill then, you're not coming to mine. Stephen, why not? Are you telling her you're coming to speak to me? Tamsin, nah, Mum and Dad will be in bed, so it's not fair on them. Meet you, Hill. Stephen, what do you mean it's not fair on them? Tamsin, taking folk in the house when they're in bed. Stephen, it's only me. Tamsin, yeah, but I'll meet you up the hill. So presumably he'd been coming into the house beforehand. She then said, you either meet me up the hill or not at all. And then the following morning at 9:29 a.m, Tamsin sent another message. Morning, are you okay? Not heard from you and I'm getting worried now. So he didn't turn up. So to me, if her story was that he didn't turn up, I'd have been messaging like, I've come all the way out here. Where are you? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
especially as she was trying to avoid that initially.
Yeah.
So obviously her boyfriend's there with her while she's...
Not at the house, he wasn't.
No, or on the phone then. It was obviously more than a two-way conversation going on there, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was, because she didn't want Dickey to know. There's later stuff where if she spoke to Steven Donaldson, she
it just doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense. But no, that was just the two of them. She just didn't want to meet up with them, apparently, allegedly. So I need to tell you that while I try and stay unbiased when I share these stories, I really can't in this instance, because these three people are pieces of shit. Honestly.
Way.
Yeah, no, they are. And I promise not to swear, but tough. Stephen Dickey was 24 and also from Courier and was known in the area as a, quote, big fish. So lame. I've tried to find as much as I can about him, but I've been unable to find anything particularly positive, which I guess some people might say, well, he's on a murder charge, but I would counter that by saying that other people in a similar situation often have people who come out and say things like, but he was such a nice guy, or this was completely out of character, we can't believe it.
Whereas everyone here is obviously like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a knob. So I did make the effort. I've made a typo here. Sources speak of it's supposed to say a cocky, but I've put, sources speak of a cockoo, flashy bully, a cockoo, who wanted to be the man, and I will obviously share information about his other charges that speak to all of that later. One thing I have found happened during trial when a jury member apparently had a turn when they were shown pictures of Steven Donaldson's body, right? He, like, all the jury members had to see them, but this one guy took a funny turn and he was getting help, and Dickie was seen winking and smiling as people tried to help him. So this is the kind of gobshite we're dealing with here.
Yeah, what a dick.
Dickie by name, Dick by nature. I did find out he was allegedly quite a hit with the ladies, but again, I can't find a relationship that shows him in a good light, so we'll just move on from that. Callum Davidson was also 24-year-old at the time of the murder and appears to have been Dickie's best mate. I saw him being described almost as Dickie's junior, so Dickie was the flash bastard with the cash, and Davidson was living hand to mouth and would do whatever he was told to do. So who knows if that's true, but it does seem plausible to me. Anyway, Davidson, he was a farmhand from Kirriemuir, and well, I can't find anything about him either. So I guess it makes sense that he and Dickie were best mates.
Yeah, sounds like it.
All I could find was a lot of disgusting and violent things they did together. Just like Dickie, he was a bully. He liked intimidating and fighting with people, and he would use his fists or weapons, just whatever he could find. So that's the accused, and they would stand trial from the 1st of April 2019. Their arrest and charges were based on evidence found on the scene, from witness testimonies, post-mortem results and expert testimonials. And as much as I would really, really like to go into all the details in the trial, I won't be able to unless you're cool with a 10-hour episode. So
Could you do a bonus?
I'm going to try and get it all into this, and what we might do is, if it's too long, split it up over 2, or maybe this would be a good time for people to stop listening, have a break, and then come back and listen to the trial.
Have a
It's up
break,
to them.
have a Kit Kat.
Not sponsored by Kit Kat, but would love to be. Do you love a Kit Kat? I was watching Vanderpump Rules the other day because I'm obsessed, and somebody was talking about a Kit Kat, and the guy said, is it a 5-finger one? And the girl was like, no, it's a 4-finger. And I thought, since when have Kit Kats had like a single, like an odd finger? It's always double unless you've got a chunky.
That's the weirdest sentence you've ever said.
Yeah, but it speaks the truth.
But they've shrunk. And my dad was so, like, grumbly about the fact that the Kit Kats have shrunk. And so I was going to buy him 4 Kit Kat chunkies.
And smoosh them together.
Melt them together. But then Mum said, you've got to stop eating chocolate. So there you go.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to meddle.
This next part might sound a little bit bullet pointy, so sorry if that's the case, but it's just so that I can get more in. Some of what you are about to hear about what happened to Stephen will be quite triggering, but I've done my best to condense this information and present it in the least upsetting manner possible, but it is bad, so I'm just giving you a warning. Stephen's trial took place in the High Court in Parliament Square, Edinburgh, and spanned 22 days, beginning on Monday, the 1st of April 2019. All 3 of the accused were being tried at the same time, with the courtroom being presided over by Judge Lord Pentland, who is the most senior judge in Scotland.
Oh.
The prosecution was presented in court by the Advocate Deputy Ashley Edwards. Each of the defendants had their own representative to plead their case. So while they were being tried together, they had their own legal.
Legal beagles.
So Dickie had Ian Dogood QC, Davidson had defence advocate Jonathan Crowe, and Glass was represented by Mark Stewart QC. Also sitting in court were 15 jurors made up of 8 men and 7 women. And the charges they were facing were, so all of them were up on murder. Tamsin's up on murder and that's it. Dickie and Davidson also had 2 shared charges for the same incidents. They were accused of 1. Behaving in a threatening manner towards 2 men between January 2014 and June 2018 by making threats, following them on foot and in a motor vehicle, presenting weapons and acting in a threatening manner.
So that was completely unrelated to Steven Donaldson. Okay.
It's unrelated, but when I go through it, you'll see not only does it speak to the character, but you'll be like, oh, okay, this is them. The next one was for behaving in a threatening manner towards a man in St Malcolm's Wynd, Courier and elsewhere between December the 1st, 2017 and February the 28th, 2018 by following him on foot, in a vehicle and threatening him with weapons. Both also deny following and staring at a woman and kicking her car in Courier between August the 1st, 2017 and April the 31st, 2018. So actually that's 3. Davidson had a separate charge for assaulting a man between June the 1st, 2017 and December the 31st, 2017 at a house in Glengate, Courier, by pushing him to the floor and threatening to punch him, while Dickie was up alone for, quote, assaulting a woman at the Ogilvy Arms pub in Courier between the 1st of February and the 28th of February last year by seizing her by the wrist, neck and threatening her with violence.
So I'm just trying to get my head around the time here. Was this after?
No.
So
most of it was before.
People,
this was all before.
Had these people reported it later?
I don't know.
Right.
I think...
I'm just wondering if they'd sort of gone, oh, they've been arrested. I can tell the police something about this.
It's safe now. Well, so the last one with Dickie against the woman, hers sort of ties in with the first one because one of the victims in the first one's a relation.
Okay.
But we will get there. Now, during the trial, those extra charges were all dropped, but I'm sharing them to give you the lowdown because witnesses for each appeared in court and their testimonies about the accused definitely helped the jury make their final decision. So all of this is heard within the trial for Steven Donaldson, even although it didn't relate to him specifically.
And even if those charges are dropped, the fact that those people had the courage to go to court, that still needs some recognition.
It needs recognition.
They are still victims. They still deserve all of that.
Definitely.
For standing up and saying what they needed to say. So.
Definitely. And I think if you're up on murder, I think the court see it as, well, murder's the biggest charge, so we'll get them on that, but we've got these to back us up. But also, you know, I do think they should be included on their rap sheet because...
They're quite... I think they must do it slightly differently in Scotland because in England, normally they wouldn't even be allowed to mention those in the same hearing.
I think when you hear what happened in these cases, you'll realise that, because I think it's the same in Scotland, I think it's purely to show a pattern of behaviour.
Okay.
And then they got all the information and then dropped the charges. But they were active at the start of the trial, so they were allowed to be heard.
Right.
So there was a plethora of witnesses brought forward for both the prosecution and the defence, and as I said, it lasted 22 days, so I'll give you as much as I can. Rather than share what happened on each day, I'm going to give you as much as I can under separate headings, which I'm not going to tell you the headings, they're just in my head. But I'm compartmentalising this information purely for you. And I'm not going to do them chronologically from the trial because it's too much, it gets too confusing. So, before the trial got going, Advocate Deputy Ashley Edwards for the prosecution shared information about Stephen and not just the facts. And like I've already done, she shared a lot of personal information about him to make him real to the jurors. This is obviously to make him a person to the jury members and not just what they're going to see, not just a faceless victim.
Yeah.
This is what the police and prosecution believe happened to Stephen on the night of June the 6th, 2018, and I will give you his official cause of death as well. It was also accompanied by props used to help them visualise the scene to make it easier for them to understand what had gone on. Okay?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's entirely necessary.
It is necessary.
Okay. I'm sort of dreading what you're going to say now.
This is the bits that's hard to hear, but it is necessary.
Okay.
So right off the bat, the jury were hit with some very graphic images showing the body of Steven Donaldson lying dead in the car park of Loch Kinnordy Nature Reserve beside the burnt out remains of his pride and joy. They also heard the 999 call made by the RSPB warden, Victoria Turnbull, with the information I spoke about earlier. Some post-mortem details were also provided to the jury, and onlookers hearing that his official cause of death was, quote, sharp force injuries to the neck. This is the props now. It was backed up with the following: a 3D mock-up which was provided of the car park for them to look at so they could see what the experts were talking about and where people were, or where the body was in reference to everything else. Aerial footage of the actual scene, which showed where Stephen's body was in relation to his BMW, and 360-degree photographs. So obviously the aerial footage and the photographs include Stephen in the pictures.
Yeah.
Ashley Edwards then took the jury back to the events of Wednesday, June the 6th. Evidence showed that while Stephen was spending time with his family, he had no idea that his girlfriend was spending time with her new beau, Dickie, and purposely wasn't texting Stephen as she was too busy with him, Davidson, and Davidson's girlfriend, Claire Ogston. After 10:20, during the text exchange we went over, Tamsin obviously said, "Meet me at the hill or not at all." The hill referred to Courier Hill, which is a sandstone formation based within the Courier Hill Park, which is affectionately known as the Peter Pan Park, which I think kind of makes it worse. It's based on the works of J.M. Barrie.
Okay.
So that's the meeting that Glass would tell Stephen's friends and family that he didn't turn up to, but we know he did. Stephen arrived keen to talk to Tamsin. He was keen to work things out, and he had no clue she was now with Dickie. It was the prosecution's belief that Tamsin lured him there so that Dickie and Davidson could enact a pre-planned attack on him. From witness statements and the post-mortem, it was thought that they hit him over the head with a weapon akin to a baseball bat before throwing him into the boot of his own car. Glass then drove her distinctive orange Vauxhall Corsa to the nature reserve, to the car park, with Davidson as her passenger. Dickie then followed a few minutes behind in Stephen's BMW 1 Series. Davidson and Dickie then pulled him out of the trunk of the car, dragged him across the gravel car park, and then Glass left in her car. And Dickie and Davidson beat him. They hit him over the head again and again and again, possibly with a weapon similar to the previous one, and then stabbed him over and over with some kind of sharp implement before dragging him to a position under his car. They then the police thought they had set him alight and his car and left him there.
Horrendous.
It's awful.
What kind of woman is she as well? This was somebody that she cared about, supposedly.
Allegedly.
At one point,
yeah.
and
it blows my mind that she was so young to think of doing this.
But to allow it to happen as well, to allow it, like, at any stage, she could have said, no, I don't want this to happen.
No, but she didn't allow it. She asked for it.
Yeah,
This is what she wanted. She wanted him gone.
But why?
It's because we're not normal, but it's because we would never ever conceive of doing anything like that. I just think she's plain evil.
Just leave. Just say it's over. Done. Boom.
And I was having an affair. The baby's not yours. I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. It's not yours. The defence then presented the accused's varying accounts of the night of June 6th. Now, as the person who the prosecution and I believe was responsible for this whole awful, tragic and horrifying event gave her version, I was blown away because she not only pled not guilty, she also said that she hadn't seen Stephen at all on the night of June 6th. So she took no responsibility at all. She admitted that although she'd been meant to see him, he hadn't turned up, and I was stunned at the gall of her, because how did she think she would get away with this completely unscathed?
She's clearly an idiot.
I think she's pure evil. I think she's narcissistic. There's something that makes her think she's untouchable.
And she probably was quite happy to throw the others under the bus as well.
Yeah, she didn't care.
No.
I 100% believe that Stephen would still be alive if it wasn't for her, and the fact that she tried to act like Little Miss Innocent actually makes me feel physically sick. It's fucking horrible. Moving on to Dickie and Davidson, who both took the stance that the other had killed Stephen. I guess their friendship at this point was dead because they're a pair of tools. Dickie claimed he had nothing to do with any attack on the night of Wednesday the 6th of June. He conceded that though he was at Courier Hill with Davidson on the evening in question, all he did was see Davidson, quote, lunge through the window of Stephen's car before it was driven out of the car park. Dickie then allegedly spent the evening watching TV and drinking beer in Davidson's home after he walked there. Davidson told the court that while yes, he would admit that he assaulted the victim in the Peter Pan Play Park parking area, he did not do anything when they reached the RSPB Loch Kinnordy Nature Reserve. He stated that at this point, Dickie told him to, quote, move aside, and then Dickie just went on to launch what he described as a, quote, crazed attack on Steven Donaldson. He said then Dickie, quote, ordered him to drive to the loch where Dickie attacked Stephen with a baseball bat. So it was now up to the evidence to talk and decide who, if any of these people, were guilty. Again, I can't provide everything here today, but I think what I'm sharing is a good reflection of what happened during trial. I'd like to cover the post-mortem and the injuries that were inflicted upon Stephen first, and though I'll share everything I know I'm going to try my best to stick just to the facts in a very clinical and sensitive manner. I want to do it like this because I actually find them really hard to read about myself. I find everything about this case really difficult, and I've cried quite a few times because it just seems really unfair. Stephen's post-mortem was conducted by Dr. Helen Brownlow of Dundee University. She is a forensic pathologist and a senior lecturer in forensic medicine, and she presented her findings on day 8 of the trial. At this point of the trial, what jurors knew and what you know from me today is that Stephen was hit repeatedly over the head with a baseball bat before being stabbed and put under his own burning car. And like most of us, you'll probably find this horrifying enough, but Dr. Brownlow's report speaks to an attack far more terrifying and sadistic than I think anyone could have imagined. I will take you through the injuries suffered first, and then I will talk about what weapon is likely to have been used. Not only was Stephen's entire body charred from the fire, but what we now learn is he also has multiple deep stab wounds and lacerations to his body and legs. His throat had been cut across the way and his jaw was broken. Both of Stephen's hands were cut down to the bone, and Dr. Brownlow believes that these may have occurred as Stephen tried to protect himself. His legs were covered in stab marks. In particular, his left leg had 8 deep stab wounds, which may have been a result of Stephen pulling his knees up in a defensive action towards his torso to protect his organs. Brownlow reported having seen this action in other cases too. Despite trying to protect himself in this way, there were 8 stab wounds in his body, and 2 of these punctured his lungs. Sharp force injuries were the official cause of death, and if you think back to PC Hoskins, when he arrived on the scene, he reported lacerations on the back of Stephen's neck. In Dr. Brownlow's report, she stated that these injuries not only broke bones in his neck, but they severed Stephen's spinal cord in 2 places. The spinal cord breakages would have caused immediate death, which, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying this, I'm glad for it, because what he had gone through already was so barbaric, but then to be set on fire.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just sort of speechless.
It's horrible.
It is awful. What?
And I don't think that they would have stopped anyway until he's dead, so he would have been...
He didn't do anything to them. He didn't
do anything to them. It wasn't like Tamsin was saying he was hitting her or, threatening her or anything like that. And I think if he hadn't died then, can you imagine, or no, don't imagine this, being under a car where you probably couldn't move because you're,
Yeah, so the injuries are so, that's horrible. It's horrible.
One of the worst things I've ever read. Dr. Brownlow talked about possible weapons when she took the stand. The blunt force head wounds Stephen suffered were attributed likely to be a baseball bat or something of a similar nature. She believed that the sharp force injuries that caused his death came from either an axe, a cleaver, a sword, or a machete. A second expert took to the stand to clarify how Stephen came to be under his car on that night and to further explain some of the wounds and findings at the scene of where Stephen's body was discovered. Louise Sonstebo, a forensic scientist and chemist for the Scottish Police Authority, stood before the jury and the rest of the courtroom and explained what was found at the scene. I'm going to give you a trigger warning here because this is graphic. And I'll give you another warning just beforehand, so if it might be too much, you'll be able to skip ahead. She initially presented pictures of the scene which showed pools and splatters of blood found on the B951 Glen Isla Road and the opening of the Loch Kinnordy Reserve. Forensic tests confirmed that the blood could only have come from Steven Donaldson. Upon examination of Stephen's body, Louise Sonstebo concluded by the appearance of sand and gravel on his lower body that he'd been dragged from the public road all the way across the length of the Loch Kinnordy car park by 2 people. She explained that one person would have been holding his feet, while the other would have had a hold of his upper body, like under his armpits, and so you hold around their chest. So his butt would have been dragging and his back would have been dragging along.
So he was trying to run.
No,
if he was out of the car park and on the road, he was trying to run. Surely.
No, he was in the boot of the car. They parked.
Yeah, but if he was
no, you're not getting it. But he was unconscious in the back of the car.
Right.
They had him in the boot. They took him out of the boot like that. Across the road from the car park and dragged him over to the car park.
Oh, right.
And then the car got moved later. This was confirmed by drag marks seen by Louise Sonstebo and police officers on the 7th of June. Ian Duguid QC questioned this, stating that he found the opinion that 2 people had carried Stephen was, quote, an extraordinary suggestion based on Stephen's height of 5'6" and a weight of 13 stone. Ms. Sonstable countered this by saying that when your body is immobilised, it does not move as easily or freely, so it's much harder to move. She supported her own theory by stating that there was evidence of gravel and sand on the lower back and body of the victim, which also suggests that his head and feet were held higher. Now, if we go back to the beginning, when PC Hoskins reported that he believed the bottom half of Stephen's legs were missing, Sonstable provided an explanation for this too, starting with how the location of Stephen's body was put under the car caused so much damage to the lower half of him. So his lower limbs were very close to the car, meaning that his feet and lower legs were probably into the area of where the wheel arch was located. His left foot was actually trapped beneath the actual frame of the vehicle, which would have occurred when the tyres completely burnt out. So, I'm sorry, and I did tell you this is horrendous. Stonstable believes that while his clothing was fire damaged, she does not believe it was set on fire, but rather caught fire from the car itself. So she doesn't think he was set on fire, it was the car. So this is your warning to skip forward 15 to 30 seconds if you don't want to hear anything too graphic. She then told jurors that Stephen's lower legs were burnt to the bone, with nothing at all from them being left on the vehicle that could have been used as evidence. So essentially his legs and feet were gone from probably the burnt rubber with the tyres and the fire. If you're back from skipping, it's kind of safe now. Though the fire totally obliterated the inside and outside of the car, it burnt itself out within an hour and a half. Okay, if you need a break after all that, that's fine, but we are now going to be covering some of the witness testimonies and sharing how it fits in with the case and the results of the trial. First of all, I really wanted to include Laurie in this breakdown as she was the last family member to see Stephen. Laurie stood as a witness on day 1 and was clearly heartbroken, struggling with her loss. She cried as she recalled her last moments with her brother and shared how Glass had showed false sympathy and worry to her while Stephen was missing, which she then carried on after his body was recovered. She shared that via messenger, Glass had lied to her about the night Stephen was murdered, pretending she was as confused as everyone else. And I can only imagine how betrayed and disgusted she was when it came out that Glass was actually the catalyst for everything that happened. We'll come back to Glass shortly because I want to speak about Dickie and Davidson now. I want to talk about what was heard in the trial about them, including the extra charges they both faced, as it really does do a good job of explaining what these monsters were like. As I said, these charges were dropped by the end of the trial, but they did what they needed to do and showed what gross meatheads these fools were and how it was plausible that what happened to Stephen was at their hands. So as you know, they shared some charges, so we'll go into them. Charge 1 related to the threatening behaviour between January 2014 and June 2018, and it was aimed at 2 men called James White and Sam Wilkie. James was first in the witness box and he shared that he felt he got targeted as a result of being friends with Sam White, who was the on-off partner of a woman called Nicola Matthews. Matthews and Dickie were childhood sweethearts and they were together on and off for 4 years, and during one of these offs she got with Sam. This triggered a very adult scenario to play out where Dickie and Davidson would basically follow the pair, White and Wilkie, in their cars and make threatening gestures towards them. Not just one time, it went on a lot, which is so embarrassing and
pathetic.
Yeah, grow the fuck up.
It is just really... They must have really thought a lot of themselves being like the big intimidating fellas because...
And I think people were scared of them because they didn't seem to care if they got caught at anything or... You know what? And this fits in with Stephen's case because this was an example of Dickie going after a girlfriend's new partner.
And also speculation completely, but that kind of person who's doing things like that regularly probably would have things like a baseball bat in their car and, they'd carry that sort of thing if it's an opportunistic, I'm going to see that enemy today or whatever.
Who does
do you know what I mean?
Though? Who, if somebody's moved on, move on as well.
Yeah.
Was the word that you were looking for that type of person? Was that scumbag?
Yeah.
On cross, White admitted that none of the events were reported to the police, but again, I don't think that means anything because what young guy is going to want to show weakness by reporting something like that? You're getting shouted at. I mean, how do you explain that?
And if it didn't come to a head...
Yeah.
What would the police actually do in that situation anyway? So I can completely understand why that wasn't reported.
It's school stuff.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. Sam also took to the stand and explained that one day in January 2018, along with the following of shouting threats and making abusive gestures, he started getting calls from Dickie where he basically went, quote, crazy down the phone. On the same day that the phone calls began, Dickie made more calls asking Sam to meet him at the Peter Pan Park.
Oh, okay.
And in the background, he could hear Davidson weighing in, saying, quote, I've got an axe, we're going to find you at some point, there's no point hiding. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, got an axe.
On cross, Davidson's attorney essentially put it to Sam that he was lying and he just wanted to make sure Davidson went to prison to save himself, to which he replied, quote, certainly not. Nicola Matthews, the woman who was not the cause of this wasn't actually her fault, but she was going out with Sam and Dickie on and off.
Yeah.
Nicola Matthews also took to the stand, but before we cover her, I do need you to know that during one of her splits with Dickie, she and Wilkie conceived a child, because there's no condoms around this place apparently. Sorry to all of those that use protection in Arbroath and Courier.
No condoms, no common sense, no... Yeah.
At some point when she was pregnant, though, she left Sam and went back to Dickie until she learned he was seeing glass, so she got back with Sam. Are we all good?
Yeah. You just... painting a very sort of chavvy picture in my mind. Everybody loves everybody 2 times a day.
Wilkie's girlfriend, Nicola, backed up what he said, telling the court that she had been present when Dickie and Davidson said that they were going to, quote, go after Sam. She also said, quote, they were going to get Sam to give a girl a lift, and then Callum was going to run him off the road. Elaborating further, she said their plan was meant to take place on Kinnordy Road, which passes Kinnordy Loch. When she was cross-examined, she brought up a claim against her boyfriend, Sam Wilkie, saying that when she'd gotten back with Dickie, her mum's car had been vandalised and she thought Sam had done it. I've not found anything that says that actually happened, or that it was him that did it, but at the time she recalls that Dickie said, quote, he was going to get Sam, chop his head off. He went out, got an axe out the back of his car and then drove off.
Wow.
Sam Wilkie's mum, Shona Sutherland, was brought in on day 3 to share evidence about the harassment she and her son faced at the hands of these two. And she spoke about a day in August 2017 when she said that the pair stopped their car in the middle of Kirriemuir and started mouthing off at her as she was just stood in the street. Davis, he was shooting his mouth off, saying he was going to, quote, kill Sam and I. She told the court how she told him to, quote, shut up with this nonsense. But can you imagine how scary that would be? She's not involved at all. She's the mother.
And it's one of those,
that's not done
one of those
anything.
things as well. Do you assume that that's nonsense, empty threats, just some big I am trying to be intimidating, which, you might assume that, but then...
Well, at that point, I don't think she thought it was serious.
Imagine the feelings she must have had to realise that actually they might not have been empty threats because look what they've done now. That's just horrid.
Well, we're not finished with Shona Sutherland. So I think on that time when she said shut up with this nonsense, I think she was a bit wary, but she was like, oh,
grow
kids.
Up. Yeah.
But Davidson and Dickie cranked things up a notch when they also approached her in February 2018. Facing the court, Shona told everyone that one night she was leaving a local bar called the Ogilvy Arms Hotel and a girl jumped her. And I'm not sure if that's a universal term, but it's when someone appears and starts attacking you out of the blue. Do you use jumping her?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if...
She got jumped, yeah.
Don't know if it's... Maybe American listeners might not.
No, I think that's...
You're not American, you don't know. Weigh in, guys.
Japanese use it too. They just jump higher.
They don't say jumped in because why would they say it in English?
Why does it say made in Taiwan in English on things that are made in Taiwan?
Because they're made for English, British people. Can we move on?
Yeah.
Anyway, this girl jumped Shona, but she managed to flip her over and hold her down on the ground when Dickie and Davidson, who'd also been in the pub, came out and the former grabbed her by the throat and pulled her up, telling her, quote, get off her or I'll batter you myself, you know I will. While she said Davidson was screaming and shouting, and I can't imagine any of the men I know ever doing anything like this. I could imagine kids doing it.
It sounds ridiculous.
It's pathetic. In court, Shona said, quote, Callum said he was going to burn my house down. Well, petrol bomb, it was the words. I was so scared I thought, what if he does? And this was her final straw, and she reported the incident to local police.
I'm glad she did report it.
Me too. For the second charge, they shared a witness called Demi Young. She told the court that she met Dickie and Davidson when she first moved to Kirriemuir and they became friends. and she trusted them. And one day when they visited her, she told them that her cat Milo had cut his leg when he was outside. It looked really bad and she didn't know what to do about it, but Davidson offered to help, saying that he would take the cat up to his farm where he had disinfectant. He promised he would clean the wound and stitch it for her, and he and Dickie would keep an eye on Milo until he was rested and healing, and then they'd bring him back to her. But it wasn't until they left she realised they'd put Milo into an Asda carrier bag. She saw Dickie swinging the bag around before Davidson kicked it. They then put the bag in the van and drove away. Demi never saw Milo again, and the men told her that he had run away after they left him out in the forest. I told you, they're absolute beasts.
People that hurt animals are just evil.
Yeah, it's bigger than a red flag.
Yeah.
On day 3, a friend of Glass's, 20-year-old Paige Jolly, gave evidence for the prosecution which could speak towards motive rather than method. It was the prosecution's stance that Glass was the reason for Stephen being targeted by her 2 meathead friends, so a motive being shown for her was essential for the trial. Jolly told the court that Glass had told her Steven Donaldson had been demanding that she return £3,000 to him from the insurance payout for the car he bought her. Without being there, I can only interpret this myself coming from reading other sources that shared Glass insinuated to more than one person that she was scared of him and felt threatened, but I personally think that's bullshit. I think it was part of her creating a narrative about Stephen that wasn't true. Jolly said that Glass vocalised that she wanted to put the money into her own mother's bank so it could be digitally transferred to him, as she didn't want to have to go and meet him. Another friend, Billy Malley, also aged 20, who had known Glass for years, confirmed that she was to pay back this money, saying, quote, I knew she was due Stephen money for the insurance money for the car that had been written off. So could this really be the reason for it? Had she spent the money and couldn't pay it back, or was there more? I personally feel it's more to do with her pregnancy and not wanting him to be involved, but anyway.
It seems to me like, though, I don't think he'd have been bothered by the money at all. I think he still was just holding a candle for her and wanted to use that physical money. I think he just wanted to use that as an excuse to just talk to her.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. He just wanted to talk, and he wanted to talk face to face, and
I agree.
I wish he could have just left it and just...
No, because that kind of puts it on him. I just wish he wasn't just a disgusting monster.
Well, yeah, that too, but...
And, you wonder about the child.
He sounds like a good guy.
He does, which was the same as Sean Ritchie. And both of these are really violent.
Were they both the same age as well? I was trying to remember.
I can't remember.
I feel like they were.
They weren't far off. They were both 20s.
It's so sad.
In defence of Glass, the court were introduced to 50-year-old Wendy Glass, her mother. In a tragic moment, she said she was currently looking after the 13-week-old son of her daughter because obviously his mother was incarcerated and because his poor father, Stephen, who never even knew for sure she was pregnant, never even got to meet him. She said all along she does not believe her daughter was involved in any way, and that when Stephen was found, she had no reason to believe this because, as far as she and her husband were aware, the couple weren't together. But she does admit that she began to wonder after hearing lots of rumours in the week following Stephen's death, though, so she asked her daughter outright if she was involved, and when she was told no, she just believed her. I'm not sure why she was so quick to believe that, or if she actually did, because she knew by then that Tamsin had lied about them being together. I mean, she didn't get herself pregnant. When asked about Tamsin's movements and mood on the night of June the 6th, 2018, she said that when Tamsin came in around the back of 11, she was, quote, normal Tamsin, very happy. She headed to bed and slept, which was proven, well, she slept well, which was proven using Apple data from the watch she was wearing. It showed that while her heartbeat went up during the attack time, she was able to sleep peacefully after it.
That's disgusting. But also, don't they have a GPS on them?
Oh.
Surely that would have put her...
2018. I wonder if they were able to get that data or not. But
surely. But
they didn't need
be
it.
able to sleep well. Just...
If you were innocent...
I can't sleep well most nights, and I'm a nice person.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't sleep most nights either, but you would think... So there's 2 scenarios, which I don't know if I wrote this, but there's 2 scenarios. 1, her boyfriend's missing, but she slept well. 2, she knows her boyfriend was tortured to death and saw some of the attack because she would have seen the baseball bat over the head, but slept well.
And also the Peter Pan Park, come on.
I know.
Twice. She's obviously been told to tell him to go there.
The next witness is one that really interests me, as she spoke about the behaviour of Glass on the day the body had been found but not identified. And I'm really sorry because I'm going to butcher this poor woman's name. Her name was Anne-Marie Scrimgeour. It's Scrimgeour. I'm so sorry. Anne-Marie, we'll just go with that. Anne-Marie is a retired opera singer based in Blairgowrie, and she'd been teaching Glass to sing since she was 7 years old, so she'd known her at this point for 12 years.
I love that she's a retired opera singer.
I do too.
That's amazing.
During the day, Glass had called to say she would be late for the lesson that the pair had weekly, and when she arrived, she told her teacher that her body had been found at Courier. She said, quote, "It was upsetting that something should happen so close to home, but other than that, she appeared to be her normal self." And I'm about to reiterate what I just said because I couldn't remember if I had it in. So now on the one side you might think this is weird because you don't believe that she had any involvement in the murder, but she didn't seem that concerned that her ex and baby daddy were missing and the body could be him. Or, like me, you might think, how on earth does someone plan something this horrific and seem to be unaffected by it at all?
Seems a bit too blasé to not be concerned about her missing boyfriend.
She's a monster.
Absolutely.
I wonder if we don't know this, but I wonder if she got psychological testing and there's something actually wrong with this woman, because
what happened to the baby?
We're getting there. Well, we know he's being looked after by the mum at trial, remember? We covered that a minute ago.
Oh, yeah.
13 weeks old.
The grandmum.
Yeah, Wendy.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we also know that she told people that Stephen was the father, as an ex-boss of hers called Ms. Lee Wright also testified that she'd been told by Glass herself. She shared that she had known Glass for years after employing her initially as a Saturday girl and latterly as a full-time member of staff. I think it was like a chippy or something, I'm not sure. Did I say that? No, I think it was a chippy. Ms. Wright was brought in for an interview after Stephen had been found and identified, and she told officers that in the weeks before his death, Glass had told her she was pregnant and that he was the father. She testified that when Glass felt her pregnancy was beginning to show, she told her she was not going to tell Stephen that he was the dad. Sorry, that was a sidebar because I went off on a tangent.
By this point, obviously, is she already seeing the other Stephen? Why would she tell somebody that Stephen's the dad and then weeks later, I'm not going to tell him?
Because maybe she got pregnant with the first Stephen and it was early doors because it turns out the boss told her to do a pregnancy test. So maybe she hadn't started seeing the other Stephen yet, and at that point
it all sounds like it happened.
She was going to try and pass it off.
And then
was she going to try and pass it off as Wright's baby?
Yeah.
No, Dickie's baby, sorry. Yeah. Not Wright's, because she's a lady boss. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there and I wasn't finished with Wendy. In the trial, Wendy also made it clear that her husband had been home and asleep for hours when Tamsin came home. But I want you to put a pin in that, because I found that as I was writing it and I was like, oh.
Cow.
She's not calling me a cow, she's saying that's the noise. Speaking to the night of the murder, there were a ton of people who stood in court and had a lot to say, but here are the accounts that I feel are the most damning when it comes to placing the people involved. 43-year-old Colin Chalmers told the court that he'd known Davidson and his family for a long time when he received a phone call from him on the night of the murder. He knew it was Davidson, this is pathetic, before he answered, as when Davidson put his own number into Chalmers' phone, he used the name the Heed Chief.
Can you spell loser?
Loser. He gave himself that name. I think we covered.
The Heed Chief.
Heed Chief Bow. Ooh.
Oh my
He sounds like he drags his knuckles. When Chalmers answered, he was asked by Davidson to do a turn for him, which is basically asking for help. He also overheard Dickie in the background saying he was, quote, plotting to write an X off the road. In the call, Davidson insinuated that he needed backup because someone was coming over from Arbroath with a group of friends and they were going to be threatening someone. According to Chalmers, he was up for helping him, but he was working. Wah, wah, wah. Loser. He's 43. He's 43 and he's going to go to a fight.
Wow.
Do you think they all stand around doing what we did as kids? Fight, 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 fight. Dickheads. He swore that, quote, he never came to my house and I never gave him any weapons. They are weapons.
They are total weapons.
Who are these people? We're 40. Oh, wait, we're 43. We're not 42. We're his age.
I know. I thought you realised that.
No, I forget all the time how old I am because of
my
old age.
So if I called you up and said, Gemma, I need to fight this person, are you going to...
Oh, I'm coming. I'm going to come. I'm going to shout, fight, fight, fight at the side. I'm going to bring a weapon.
Roll your sleeves up and bring your ice cream cone handle skipping rope.
Oh, you brought out a fast weapon. Are you going to explain that?
Nope.
Then, an 18-year-old Jack Elder gave evidence placing all three of the accused together at the Peter Pan Park in Courier in the hours before Stephen's body was found. The witness was in the car park of the park and saw Tamsin's distinctive orange colour car. Also, if you're going to do something like that, why would you take a car with you that everybody knew? Like, there's not many bright orange bloody Corsas going about, is there? So she parked up, and he stated that while he, quote, wouldn't say I was a friend of Glass, he did know of her and who she was, and she was sitting in the driver's seat. Claire Ogston was in the back, and her boyfriend Davidson was in the front passenger seat. All the windows were down. The three were speaking to Dickie, who was beside the car, wearing full leathers, sitting on his motorbike. Although in my head I like to think of him sitting on a push bike because he just sounds like a dick. Jack put his windows down too, allegedly because he thought it was polite. 18-year-old just thought it was polite to put his windows down too and start chatting to the people in the next car that he knew. But so the prosecution asked if sorry Jack, I hope you're not one of these meatheads, but I just find that really funny. My mum taught me it was polite to put my windows down. Sorry.
And he was blowing bubbles out the window at the time too.
Yeah, we had a great time. Write the theme tune, sing the theme tune. Sorry. The prosecution asked if he had heard any chat about the plans of those in the car, and he said all he heard was that Dickie was going to drop his bike off at Davidson's. They were also seen by a mechanic called Alex Stewart in the car park at the Kerry Hill on the same night. He alleges that he had parked there on June the 6th, 2018 and was watching music videos on his phone, which I don't believe, but we'll move on. He described a, quote, awful sporty BMW coming into the car park.
Is that like awful sporty, like very, not awful?
Awful.
That one, yeah.
No, it's still awful though. It means awful, but it just means, oh, it's an awful sporty car. Like, oh, it's a well sporty car, man.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean gross.
No. I think it was a beautiful car.
Yeah.
It passed in front of his vehicle, but then left as quickly as it arrived. He then saw it come back, but this time it headed into the overflow car park. And when the lights of the BMW swept into the car park, Stuart saw them light up an orange Corsa, which he knew belonged to Tamsin Glass.
Because it's a distinctive orange Corsa.
Movements of the cars were also captured on CCTV, which was shown in court, and they tied in with the evidence supplied by Alex Stewart. So to clarify, the CCTV showed the orange Vauxhall Corsa driven by Glass, and the other one was a BMW 1 Series with the number plates S73VED, so we know the number plates were there, which belonged to Steven Donaldson. Both were shown to be leaving Kirriemuir at around 10 p.m, with one a few minutes ahead of the others, and they took a similar route through the town. The CCTV footage also showed Davison sitting in the passenger seat of the Corsa, which is incriminating evidence if ever you did see it. I believe the most damning information on day 4 came from Callum Davidson's uncle, Michael Davidson. 30-year-old Mr. Davidson sat with Detective Constable David Budd, who was in charge of coordinating the CCTV in the inquiry of Stephen's murder. In their first interview on Monday, June the 11th, Michael Davidson said that he had not been visited by his nephew at all. However, I'm assuming this was proven to be lies, as Budd re-interviewed him on Wednesday the 27th of June. In that sit-down, Michael admitted that he had been there, arriving at around 9 p.m. at night. He said, quote, when Callum first came in, I would say he was a bit agitated. He told Bud that Callum was all worked up because apparently some guy, a loan shark from Arbroath, which Stephen wasn't, was going to be coming to Kirriemuir with a gang, and they were going to sort Glass out, and she owed him. That was all he knew about that. He had no clue what the money was for or anything like that, but he also alleged that when his nephew was in his home, he asked if he could, quote, take a baseball bat that was lying at my bedroom door. Oh, Uncle Mike, I see you've got a baseball bat lying there. Can I hear a wee shorty? Aye, pal, it's just lying there. I'm not using it at the moment.
I was going to try and do a Scottish accent, but I won't.
The thing is,
say, would you like the... No, I can't do it.
Would you like the bat? Would you like me to shine it for you? You know, we shouldn't take the piss, but these people are idiots. Michael assumed it was to take to meet the loan shark, who he learned was called Steven Donaldson.
Who liked softball? No?
So did Dickie and Davidson legitimately think that this guy was her ex, but also was a loan shark and was coming tooled up? But then when he didn't come tooled up, After this, he also confided in Bud that later on in the night that Stephen was found, around 1 a.m, he took a call from Davidson. He told Bud that during the call, he could tell that his nephew was in Dickie's home as he could hear the noise the dogs make when they walk across the laminate flooring. And he could hear Dickie talking on his own phone in the background. When he first answered the call, he heard his nephew say, quote, "He's left him for dead." When Michael answered, quote, with him asking what the crack was.
Dun dun dun.
I've written here, pause for dramatic effect.
What's the crack?
How dare he use that?
Yep. Plagiarism. Blech. Blech.
Callum had continued saying that he had, quote, punched the guy a couple of times and been scratched on the nose by the boy, but he said it had nothing to do with the discovery at the beauty spot. But the discovery at the beauty spot hadn't happened at 1 a.m. And I don't think he would have called it a beauty spot. On the cross, Michael was questioned by Davidson's defence advocate, Jonathan Crowe. Crowe asked, when you say you were told, quote, "He's left him for dead," was Callum speaking about himself or someone else? Michael replied, quote, "From what you've just heard, someone else." And I imagine it was like, someone else, obviously.
Yeah.
Doesn't speak in the third person, although some people do, I guess. This witness and Davidson himself were placing the blame firmly on Dickie. Claire Ogston was the partner of Callum Davidson when the murder occurred, and she also took to the witness box during the trial, and I'm not sure if she's still with him at the time of the trial, but it turns out she was 2 months pregnant with a little girl when this all occurred, and she was now the mother to a 12-week-old when she testified. Just an FYI, it's possible that had she not eventually spoken up, this case might not have come to trial, as initially she told the police that although she was in the car when the trio left the Peter Pan Park, as Elder's testimony, she said she'd been dropped off before anything happened to the victim. She alleges she was told in the aftermath, and she was too scared to speak out at the time. Which, if you're living with a guy like Davidson, I would imagine you are living in fear. She told the jury earlier on in the day, the Elder saw them, the guy with the windows down.
Yeah.
She'd been party to a conversation between Glass and Dickie. She said that Glass took a phone call which she believed was with Donaldson, and after it she heard her tell Dickie to, quote, deal with a situation. So she later figured Dickie and Davidson had probably gone up and beaten the man up, and that was it. Miss Ogston told the jury that on the night of Stephen's murder she was asleep when her boyfriend entered the room and woke her up. She remembered that at the time he looked grey and jittery as he entered her room. He was making it clear he wanted to talk to her, but looking at the state he was in, she didn't want to hear anything and tried to, quote, shut him down. When she got up, she found that Dickie was in her shower, and it was at this moment that Davidson tried again to tell her what happened when they went to the hill with Glass. She says that she made it clear again that she wasn't interested in hearing what he had to say. However, Davidson then left the home and Dickie came out the shower, and she noted that Dickie was, quote, a very grey colour and quiet. When they were alone, Dickie started talking. He said when they were at the hill, a heated argument between Glass and her ex-boyfriend had broken out, and so he went over to, quote, intervene. This intervention involved Dickie hitting Stephen over the head as he tried desperately to escape. He alleged that it had hit him so hard that the bat went to pieces. He then reached into the pocket of a jacket that was hanging on one of Ogston's doors, pulled out a knife that was bent and that she recognised as being one of her own from her kitchen, and placed it on the counter in front of her. Shortly after this, she heard Dickie on the phone to her boyfriend. When Davidson left, he had gone back to the park to try and find all the pieces of the bat. He was going to collect them and presumably dispose of them. However, he was unable to find them, so he was coming back home. I'm going to share 2 more witnesses before I give you the result of the trial and a brief outline of some things which have happened since that I'm frankly disgusted by, before I end with something that I love, and I think you will too. So we're getting to the end. Mr. Howcroft also appeared in court, and he's apparently a relative of Davidson, but I'm not sure how they're connected. He shared that in May of 2018 he was spending quite a lot of time with Glass. He started to pull away from her, Davidson and Dickie, when he began to think that something was going on between Glass and Dickie. So basically he bowed out of a potential romantic situation between him and Glass. Or that's how I read it. He was in court to speak about a statement he made to the police on June the 12th. In his police interview, he told them about bumping into Davidson in Kirriemuir Town Centre on June the 7th. He stopped to speak to him, he said, only because they were related. It was the day that Stephen's body had been found, and rumours were flying about everywhere. He told the police that Davidson had made a comment but then had backtracked saying it was a joke. In court, he was encouraged to share with them what he remembered Davidson saying to him. He said, quote, he said something about the boy's car being a fine car to drive, and that he replied, quote, I hope you're not being serious. And Davidson went, I'm not being serious. He followed up by saying that while he was shocked about this, Davidson appeared fine. Another witness, called Jamie Stewart, spoke about an incident that occurred on the same day as Howcroft. He told the congregation sitting in the High Court that on the day Stephen's body was found, he and his partner, Kirsty Milne, were in the local co-op in Courier at around 7:30pm. It was there that they bumped into Dickie Davidson and Claire Ogston. As they chatted, he alleged that Davidson started speaking to his partner Kirsty before saying to the both of them that, quote, he'd been there when some of it happened. The way he says Davidson explained to him and his partner was that something had kicked off at the Peter Pan Park and, quote, the baseball bat had snapped over the person's head with one swing and that he had punched him. Mr. Stewart took this to be the actions Dickie had taken by the way Davidson said he. He said Davidson then continued by admitting to him that he had punched the victim and collected all the weapons used so he could get rid of them. He then said he'd left to do that but, quote, left Tamsin's dad there to get rid of the body. Remember we put a pin in Tamsin's dad being asleep? Nothing's come of that, but interesting. And it blew my mind again because I didn't know there was any implication.
Why would he mention that if it wasn't true?
But why would the dad do it when allegedly Glass didn't physically do anything? I don't think you would touch that with a barge pole, but anyway, he's never been charged, so innocent till proven guilty. Mm-hmm. Stewart was asked how he responded to all this, and he replied, quote, I'm sure that's going to get you years for doing that, before shaking his head as he looked at Davidson and turning to Kirsty to say they should go. They then left the co-op. On cross, he admitted that his family and Callum's family had a long history of feuding, but assured the court he was only repeating what he'd been told. So, I think I've shared quite a lot of testimony, but you can read more in the sources I'll share, and I can say that a lot of what I found came from the Courier, so you'll get the link to that, and if you go into the site you can search the case and find a lot on there, because I use a lot of articles and I will put them up, but there's so much information. Jurors left to discuss the case and to decide a verdict for each of the accused on Thursday the 2nd of May, and after 10 hours of deliberation they came back on the afternoon of Friday May the 3rd with the following: Stephen Dickie, guilty of murder. Callum Davidson, guilty of murder. Tamsin Glass, and this really makes me fucking angry, guilty of culpable homicide. And I know it's how the law works, but I 100% believe that Stephen would still be here if he'd never met her. Yeah. And what I also can't get my head around is both men got life sentences. Great. But that fucking bitch got 10 years.
Ugh. So she's out.
10 years for 10 years for instigating and pushing for Stephen's murder. She's never admitted her involvement. She's never said sorry. She's acted like she's done absolutely nothing that whole time. It would not have happened without her. They would not have met. So since being in jail, she has applied for parole repeatedly until then they let her out on parole before she'd even served half her sentence. She was recalled to prison in April of this year after she had her licence revoked as she broke her conditions, and we don't know what she did. The family haven't been told anything, but prison hasn't taught her. Stephen's poor family even had to see pictures of her laughing and smiling while on a day out with her son. She's on some sort of wagon or something, but on the 11th of this month she was applied for parole again, but she was denied it again. And we need to remember that every single time she applies for parole, Stephen's family have to go and speak to why she shouldn't be allowed out, and that is not fair. It's a prime example of how the courts are 100% swayed towards the perpetrators and not the victims. They get put through that every single time she does it.
Just a note on that though, they don't have to be. You can opt out
in Scotland. I'm not sure if it's different, but if you don't, there's more chance of them getting. So you do have to. If you want to keep them in there, you have to go to every single one.
I know.
Anyway, I'm not finished. Davidson's still in jail, but Dickie's not. Because he completed suicide when he was in there. I'm not sure how, and I don't care how, because as far as I'm concerned, justice wasn't served because he did that. He should have had to sit in there and rot, but he can't hurt anyone else anymore. I've got one nice thing to tell you, and then we really... Wait.
Just want to say her sentence
it's bullshit.
Horrendous.
It's bullshit. In America, she would get tried the same as them.
But I was going to say what you said about a psych evaluation. I'm sure she has. If she's in them now, she probably has had one.
So then they've obviously not found anything.
She's got to have something wrong with her.
She definitely does have something wrong with her. She's a fucking...
She's not normal.
No. So the one good thing I can say is that every year now there is a big biker rally in honour of Stephen. It only didn't happen this year because of Storm What's-Her-Face.
Doris or Floris.
I think it was
Yeah,
Floris.
something like that.
And I think I'm going to go next year and watch it because they go through the streets and stuff
I'll
of
come with
Arbroath.
you.
So,
Yeah.
yes, we would like to be there. We are going to have to sign off really quickly.
Good case, horrible case.
Mm-hmm.
Really awful what they did to that poor chap and his family. I just think that's
For
horrendous.
nothing.
It's horrendous. He just sounded like he had good friends and a good life, and
Maybe jealousy played a part.
maybe.
Just think, if she'd actually told him she was pregnant, it's not like he wasn't going to pay for his child.
No, horrendous.
So, on that note, I'm sorry to cut this off really short, but I have to go to work, and this was a long one.
Goodbye.
I'm sorry, what?
What?
You don't say bye.
Caca. Bye. Oh, keep on trucking.
Bye.